Hi, everyone. How are you feeling? My name is Dave Kelly, and I am thrilled to be here. I was here at the first one 70 years ago, and I'm here again today. So how lucky for you that you get to have a repeat performance. But here's the truth. This room is the only time in my entire career as a guy talking on a microphone that I have actually heard these words. Is there a doctor in the room? This is the only time that's ever happened. Not tonight, we're good. But I was in this room when somebody said, is there a doctor in the room? And about 60 of them stood up. But it was great because there was a gentleman who was eating, who was not well. We ended up with the EMT. I don't know if any of you remember. It was a big EMT. Hey, it was for you were here. It was, yeah. I don't want to say you made someone throw up, but that's kind of what happened, Brett. Right? So it was a great night of everyone sort of pulling together, and I'm glad to be here again to say this is an important night for all of us. And to start it off, I want to start by saying this world where we get together and we talk and we raise our funds and we have stories has been happening in this very area for tens of thousands of years. And I get to say that we're all part of Treaty 7, and the Treaty 7 people that were here before we were here, the Great Blackfoot Confederacy, the only place on the planet where you can hear the Blackfoot language spoken is southern Alberta. Nowhere else in the world. That's right here. So the Blackfoot Confederacy here, the Tsuut'ina people that are here, and the Stoney Nakoda people who are here as part of Treaty 7 and Métis Region 3, they have a history of getting together just like this to be part of a great night. So I want to thank them and us for being here today, and I have some very special introductions. Do you ever meet a rabbi and they're like happy just to see you, and you're like, I want to be happy like this rabbi. He is the happiest, kindest person I know. So I'm just trying to build it up a bit here because he's also going to sing for us. And he said, I just want everyone to know it's a cappella. They don't have to have anything else. So let me tell you what's about to happen with our two very, very special guests that we have with us here today. I would like to invite up rabbis from the Beth Tzedec Synagogue, Rabbi Cantor Jane, and Rabbi Krieger Lupidis, who are here to sing our national anthem, the Israeli national anthem, and to bless the food. Those are a lot of jobs you have, so I'm hoping it all goes well. Can we welcome them to the stage? You want this mic?
Please rise for the national anthems of Canada and Israel. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Zion, Yerushalayim. Liotam choshi ve'artzeinu Eretz Zion, Yerushalayim.
Welcome, everyone. It is an honor to have you all here this evening at Tzedec Synagogue. Every moment has the potential for holiness. That's what the Jewish tradition teaches. No moment is just a throwaway moment, because in any moment, holiness can happen. Even the simple act of sitting at table and eating with someone can be elevated into a sublime, holy, and precious moment. And that is why we make a bracha, a blessing, before we sit down to table. Because we acknowledge that we are not just machines that shove food into our mouths. We are human beings, created in the image and likeness of God. And through our interaction, one with another, we can elevate any moment to a state of profound holiness. And that is what I wish for us all here tonight as we sit at table with each other. The ability to connect, the ability to truly get to know each other, the ability to make this moment one of sublime, profound holiness. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. The Te'avon.
Te'avon. You may be seated.
Thank you. Welcome to sublime holiness. How about that? Tonight, there is a few more formal part of the evening, so I want to make sure we're all still listening. Let's do our cards. Do it. There we go. Just as a reminder, it is time to listen. Hi, everyone. I love it. Time to listen. There we go. Hi, everyone. I want to make sure that we have everyone's attention because there's some formal parts of the evening that I do not want you to miss. If we could have everyone listen up. There we go. Thank you. Hi. Oh, thanks, Hal. So, first of all, we are here to honor two very special guests. One is Ambassador Cohen, our ambassador from the United States to Canada. Ambassador Cohen had plans on being here. Could I get the folks' attention in this corner? Thank you. He is not here because COVID had plans, but can we thank him with a round of applause anyway for wanting to be here? And of course, our second very special guest is with us here in the room. Can we welcome our Mayor, Mayor Gondek, who's sitting with us here. Welcome, Mayor. Here's what's going to happen. As long as you chew quietly, you can start the food. And we have a couple of awards and announcements of folks that I want to introduce you to be sure that we're ready and all on the same page. So my first introduction, I wanted to let people know if you would like to, people are saying to themselves, I want to spend money, Dave. How can I spend some money? Well, we're lucky. I'll help you with that. There's table prizes. Do you see the deck of cards? The table prize is very straightforward. It's a $50 gift card to Willow Park Wines and Spirits. During the meal, not now, you're going to deal the cards. Highest card wins. $50 gift certificate, but not quite yet. This QR code gets you into the live auction and into the silent auction. So if you scan this, it'll get you into the silent auction. It's all there, and into the live auction as well. There's a 50-50 draw. People are going to go around and sell tickets for that, so make sure you do it. But I want to bring up Michael Mostyn. Michael Mostyn is the CEO of B'nai Brith Canada, and he is going to speak to us, and we're going to start with a short video. Have a look at the screen.
B'nai Brith Canada is the country's oldest Jewish human rights organization. It's a brand that's predicated on the concept of people helping people, which is what our brand has stood for ever since its inception in 1875. As a community connector, the B'nai Brith brand is based on 3 pillars: B'nai Brith Advocacy, B'nai Brith Cares, and B'nai Brith Sports. B'nai Brith plays the role of a sword and shield for Canadian Jews, acting as both a protector of human rights and as a safety net for the vulnerable within our community. A staunch defender of the State of Israel and proponent of Canadian Jewry, B'nai Brith Canada is committed to combating the racism, hate, and anti-Semitism which blights our society. Uniquely, the B'nai Brith approach to advocacy focuses on seeking consequences against those who promote anti-Semitism and other forms of racism. We have a national network of talented volunteers and staff that drive our action-oriented agenda to meet the evolving needs of the community. For over a century, B'nai Brith has led the way as an intervener in all levels of court in defense of human rights. And more recently, we have launched the Matus Law Society, an activist Jewish legal network dedicated to the fight against hate. The B'nai Brith advocacy pillar has always been the first port of call for those experiencing discrimination. Activities under this pillar include advocacy for both Jewish and non-Jewish human rights. The League for Human Rights is one of Canada's premier civil liberty associations, maintaining our anti-hate hotline, as well as facilitating reporting from our B'nai Brith anti-hate mobile app. The League annually produces our world-renowned annual audit of anti-Semitic incidents, which is cited internationally as a snapshot of the state of hate in Canada. The Special Advisory Council to the League for Human Rights includes lawyers, academics, and community leaders from the diverse multicultural communities under the umbrella of the League, allowing communities to assist one another on issues of mutual concern towards building a better and safer country for all of us. Our wide-ranging educational and social programs and community and volunteer services offer support to anyone facing discrimination. B'nai Brith Advocacy is committed to combating hate and is dedicated to our motto of people helping in the fight for human rights. People helping people live with dignity is the foundational motivation of our B'nai Brith Cares brand. Our innovative, action-based food, clothing, housing, seniors, and diverse minds programs housed under this brand work to ensure that all members of our community are able to live with the dignity that they deserve. The B'nai Brith Canada Diverse Minds program is an exciting creative writing competition which invites high school students to reflect on the values of diversity and inclusion by writing and illustrating a story for elementary school students. Through peer-to-peer learning, students lead the way in creating communities where everyone is valued. The goal of Diverse Minds is to empower our youth to become role models for each other and understand that their impact reaches beyond their classrooms. And it is these 3 pillars that provide the framework for us as we try on a daily basis to live up to our motto of people helping people.
Hello, friends. Would you please welcome with me the CEO of B'nai Brith Canada, Michael Mostyn.
Well, thank you so much. And as you can see, that's what B'nai Brith is all about today. It's standing for communities and fighting against hate and against the anti-Semitism that's out there in society, delivering consequences. So first of all, we'd like to congratulate B'nai Brith Calgary Lodge for just another outstanding event. I'd like to wish a mazel tov to Max Lipsman for the award, Ambassador Cohen, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your leadership. We appreciate it. And I know Premier Kenney can't join us today, but I know Minister Shandro is here. And just one thing, a great consequence that came across this past year, working together with Chabad Lubavitch and B'nai Brith. We were working with Minister Shandro, Premier Kenney. There was no kosher food, unfortunately, in the jail system here in Alberta. Now, thankfully and hopefully we don't have too many Jews that are going to jail. But the fact of the matter is that every person in this country should have the right to fulfill their religious obligations, regardless of their faith, even if they're in incarceration. And this government understood that. They accepted the plea from the Jewish community, and we really appreciate that from your government, and it was a great mitzvah. So thank you very much to everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and Shana Tova.
Thank you, Michael. I'm now going to bring up Darren. Darren, I know you're ready, and I know you're ready to go. Darren Bondar, president of the Calgary B'nai Brith and Menorah Foundation, to say a few words and give some money away. Take it away.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. It's hard to believe that dinner has been happening for 70 years. 70 years. Thank you so much to all of our attendees and our sponsors. Congratulations to Mayor Gondek, Ambassador Cohen. When we choose these as lodge members and we choose who to honor, there's a lot of discussion and a lot of animated discussion. So a very well-deserved honor tonight, and thank you for accepting and thank you for joining us. I'd also like to thank and congratulate Max Lipsman. And just tell you Max Lipsman, yes, please. Who will be receiving the Ben Doctor Leadership Award this evening. I met Max first when I was in grade 2 at was then the I.L. Parrott School, which is now amalgamated with the Calgary Jewish Academy, which is the building next door, where his wife Rochelle, who we call Larry and Rachel, was my grade 2 teacher. And she brought this big athletic guide from Montreal into Calgary. And I remember some very specific moments which I'll share with you. Number one, he taught me how to play basketball and how to do a layup. Obviously at 5'7", and it didn't go so well for me. But then he also taught me how to play racquetball. And just when you thought you were doing really well, he'd challenge you to a game. He'd play with his left hand and one hand tied behind his back, and he'd beat you 15-0 like it was nobody's business. But he's been a great mentor over the years. I was fortunate to be the director of Camp BB. Max was my successor, and we've been able to work together on a lot of great initiatives. So Mazel Tov, Max. Congratulations on a well-deserved honor tonight. Very quickly, I'd just like to thank the executive of the B'nai Brith Calgary Lodge. If the executive members want to stand, Sam Feldman, Vice President. Stacy Shakin is our treasurer and also manages Camp BB Reback and also the B'nai Brith Youth Organization. So thank you, Stacy Shakin. And Joel Zimmerman, our corporate secretary. I'd also like to thank all of our ticket sellers and all of our members who are crucial to this organization, which is now the B'nai Brith Lodge is in 105 years since we received our chaptership. And last but not least, I would like to thank, this event does not happen without our executive director, and she's probably running around, I don't know where she is, but Paulina Brenner, there she is. Thank you very much for all that you do. All the details are thanks to Paulina, and this really is thanks to her. Now, I get the best job of the night, which is to hand out some checks. Thanks to all of your generosity this evening, I'd like to call up from the Calgary Food Bank, Leah Johnson-Clark and Lynn Tipper. On behalf of the B'nai Brith Lodge number 816, I'm pleased to present to you a check in the amount of $10,000 for the Calgary Food Bank. Thank you. And now from Jewish Family Services, I'd like to call up Roxanne Dropo and Win Thal. Some of you might know Win's Pantry. This is Win right here. And also, on behalf of the Calgary B'nai Brith Lodge, number 816, it is my pleasure to donate a check in the amount of $10,000 to help the Win's Food Pantry going forward. Thank you very much, everybody. Enjoy the evening.
Well done. Well done. Well, should we give the award to Max? I feel like those of you that know Max know that this is a well-deserved award. And let me tell you a bit about it. Since its inception in 1993, the Ben Doctor Award is given annually by the B'nai Brith Calgary to a member of the community who has contributed to fostering the growth and development of the Calgary Jewish community with high principles of ethics, compassion, kindness, and harmony in the community. I'm going to bring up a longtime friend of Max's, Eric Babbins, in just a sec to talk a little bit about Max. But I want to make sure that when we do that, that I have, where's our sign, folks? There you go. I'm going to bring up Eric, who's going to talk about Max. This is a big award for him, and I want to make sure that all of us are able to hear. Hi, everyone. Eric, where are you? You ready? Max is going to receive this prestigious award, and I want everyone to make sure we get it. Would you please give a warm welcome to his longtime friend, Eric Babbins. Come on up here, Eric. Yeah, great.
I think the last time I was at this building in front of this many people, I was actually doing a bris. Anyway, it's a pleasure for me to introduce Max Lepsman, my oldest and dearest friend in Calgary. We first met in 1979 when we both lived in Montreal and worked together at appropriately Camp B'nai Brith in Montreal, in Synagogue. I was the section head, and he was one of my senior supervisors. I had heard of Max before, because he worked with my sister Robbie at Camp Wooden Acres, also in Montreal. His reputation preceded him, and working with him in person supported his reputation of someone with a very large personality, but who always put camp community and kids first. Even though we only worked together one summer, he left an impression on me, as he tends to do with everyone. We lost touch after that summer of '79 because I moved to Toronto to further my education. And in 1981, he and his wife, Rocky, who we met at camp and who he's been married to for 41 years, moved to Calgary, where he worked in various roles as a social worker. It was not long before his love of children and community brought him back to his roots. In 1985, he became Director of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Aquatics at the Calgary Jewish Community Center. And in 1988, he took on the role of Assistant Executive Director. In 1992, he moved on from the JCC to take on the role of Director of Recreation and Leisure Services at the Vocational Rehabilitation Research Institute. After 7 years in this role, he successfully came full circle when he became the Executive Director of Camp BB Reback. Max was finally back at camp, working with kids and helping to shape the lives of campers and encouraging the development of the next generation of counselors. I had the opportunity to provide medical services at camp for several years, allowing Max and I to be back at camp together once again. It is virtually impossible to meet a young adult in Calgary who did not have an opportunity to be influenced in a positive way by Max. The memories run deep, and many of these campers develop relationships that have evolved into lifelong friendships and even marriages. During his 11 years in this role, aside from being responsible for the campers and the staff, he successfully completed various capital projects and left the camp with a positive bank balance, not to mention a tornado shelter to protect our children should another natural disaster occur, no matter how small the likelihood. If our youth were not influenced by Max at camp, then they were likely under his care during one of the 5 Marches of the Living trips that he led. In 2010, Max took on yet another community role, Executive Director of the Calgary Tzedec Congregation Society. He stayed in this role for 11 years until his retirement in 2021. Even in his retirement, he continues to work for the community as he is now in charge of burial services for the Tzedec. Many of you may be wondering why I am up here introducing Max. Well, I moved to Calgary in 1983, and although I knew that Max had been living in Calgary since 1981, our paths did not cross again until 1985, when I met my wife, Bonnie. As it turned out, Bonnie had been, and still is, best friends with Max's wife, Rocky, since kindergarten at the IL Parrott School. Max and I re-established our friendship via our wives, and we have been like brothers since then. I'm lucky to have a friend like him. He connects me to my past, as we are both from Montreal, and he connects me to my present via our daughters, who happen to be best friends as well as our grandchildren. When he is not volunteering, he now spends his free time enjoying fitness, golf, and cleaning out his garage. He spends as much time as possible with his daughter Simi and her husband Jordan, as well as his other daughter Kyla and her partner Mike, who currently reside in Toronto. As well, he spends as much time as possible with his grandchildren, Jolie and Kane. Interestingly, his daughter Kyla, who now resides in Toronto, works in her community as well as a social worker, like father, like daughter. Max exemplifies community and commitment. He is an example to anyone who works in their community, and we are lucky to have him committed to ours. It is an honor for me to introduce him as the recipient of the Ben Doctor Award of Excellence, but more so, it is an honor to call him my friend.
Come on up, Max. We're joined by Ben Doctor Jr., who the award is named after, and we'll have you say a few words after Max.
Calgary B'nai Brith 816 over the past 100 years has changed in many ways, but the basic premise has always been to help those in need in the Calgary Jewish and general communities. Over the years, B'nai Brith allocated over several $1 million to organizations and programs to help people in need, and at the same time ensured their objectives were clear as to promoting acceptance, support, tolerance, and fairness. My involvement with B'nai Brith Calgary stems back many years when my father-in-law, Sept, invited me to participate at a monthly general dinner meeting. At that time, it was a group of individuals who talked about the politics of the community and how they can get involved and possibly change the world. It was always entertaining to be at these meetings, and as times passed, I came to realize that this group of dedicated volunteers were driven to raise funds and help those who needed help with no strings attached. In short, they just wanted to help and make a difference. Growing up in Montreal was challenging as a child of immigrants and Holocaust survivors. Adjustment and acceptance into my surroundings was hard, and at times I fell victim to being bullied for just being different. As I grew older and considerably bigger, I developed an understanding of who I was, and I no longer tolerated being treated unfairly, and at times that resulted in me getting into trouble. Organizations such as B'nai Brith reached out into our small communities to help, and that was my starting point. as to my involvement in youth organizations. Funding that was provided to youth in those times was geared towards training leaders and purchasing program equipment so we can participate in activities that would create an atmosphere of acceptance, inclusion, and tolerance. I became actively involved in youth organizations and community work, which involved a long association with the residential camps, athletics, counseling, and rehabilitation. My combined work and volunteer services over the past 47 years has focused on creating opportunities for individuals to develop an understanding of their limitations, develop a sense of self-confidence and self-worth, and more importantly, advocating for those less fortunate. B'nai Brith Calgary continues to do the good work to those who need assistance. I have seen and participated in many of the programs they supported, and albeit there is more work to be done, B'nai Brith Calgary continues to help. I am honored to be the recipient of the Ben Doctor Award of Excellence. I share this award with my wife, Rocky. You have always been supportive, patient, and encouraging to me during the most challenging times when dealing with people who needed me most. Your wisdom, insight, compassion, and trust were paramount in everything I did. I know I've left a legacy with my daughters, Simi and Kyla. They are proud of their heritage, advocates for those less fortunate, accept those who are different, and are fiercely protective of family. My last thank you is to my community. Thank you for trusting me to provide what I could, and I can only hope I made a difference. Thank you.
I'd like... Go ahead, Ben.
Hi there. I'm Benjamin Doctor, presenting the Ben Doctor Award tonight to Max, who is truly an outstanding individual, and he exemplifies everything the Ben Doctor Award is all about. So, for all the years of dedication and hard work, Max, thank you very much.
Darren, you want to come up and help present this award?
Just grab it. Is it here? Should be there. There it is right here.
Max offered, if anybody you want, he will go to your house and clean your garage. That's what he does now, and he's getting very good at it. This is what we have the chance to do. Now is your time to chat amongst yourself, to talk, enjoy your meal, and we'll be back a little bit later on with a conversation with our mayor. Enjoy your meal. Can we, even though he's not in the room, but he is joining us, can we give a round of applause and a welcome for this video from our ambassador, Cohen.
Thank you very much, B'nai Brith Calgary Lodge number 816, for honoring me at tonight's 2022 annual dinner. I am so sorry that I could not be there with you, but COVID has interfered with my ability to travel, although I'm feeling just fine. On a personal level, it is a tremendous tribute to be recognized by such a remarkable and prestigious organization, and alongside the fabulous mayor of Calgary, Jyoti Gondek, who in the 10 months I have spent in Canada has become a friend. When we first met, I explained to the mayor my affinity for mayors based on my service as chief of staff to the mayor of Philadelphia. Being mayor is one of the toughest jobs in politics, but also one of the most rewarding because of the impact you can have on real people's lives. Right at the outset of our first meeting, the mayor emphasized her personal commitment to diversity and inclusion, which of course is a core value of B'nai Brith. I am also very honored to be sharing the stage with this year's recipient of the Ben Doctor Award for Excellence, Max Lipsman. Max has been a stalwart of the Calgary Jewish community as both a volunteer and a leader of many social organizations, including the Beth Tzedec congregation, which is hosting this event tonight. His tremendous dedication and commitment to helping others is unparalleled. I've done my research, and I am truly impressed with B'nai Brith's 105 years of service to the Calgary community as Canada's oldest independent Jewish organization dedicated to eradicating anti-Semitism, racism, and hatred in all forms. Being recognized by B'nai Brith is particularly relevant today. The work of B'nai Brith is incredibly compelling in our current troubled environment. B'nai Brith's commitment to justice really resonates with me. B'nai Brith's values also line up beautifully with my commitment, shared with the mayor, to principles of diversity and inclusion. Then there is the charitable focus of B'nai Brith. Charity in the Jewish religion is often defined as tzedakah. That word actually means righteousness and justice. The concept of tzedakah is slightly different than our Western philosophy of charity. While the basic premise of helping those less fortunate than yourself is the same, tzedakah is not voluntary in the Jewish religion, but rather an obligation, one that requires participation. B'nai Brith has been following through on this obligation in Canada for over a century, uplifting and supporting youth and seniors in every community in Calgary while advocating for human rights in the fight against racism, anti-Semitism, and hatred in all forms. This work never stops, and modern events serve as a reminder of the critical importance of staying vigilant. While we may enjoy periods of relative calm, the unfortunate scourge of racism and intolerance still simmers just beneath the surface, rearing its ugly head more frequently than we would like. As President Joe Biden said just last week when he convened a summit at the White House with leaders from communities across America who are healing from hateful attacks, the through line of hate never fully goes away. It only hides. And that's why organizations like B'nai Brith are so critically important. I cannot stress just how necessary the services and programs that B'nai Brith has developed, shared, and supported for over 100 years are right now. By collaborating and partnering with organizations like the Calgary Homeless Foundation, the Calgary Jewish Academy, the Salvation Army, which, by the way, held its first meeting in North America in 1879 in my hometown of Philadelphia, the Learning Disabilities Association of Alberta, and the Calgary Interfaith Food Bank, just to name a few. The charity of B'nai Brith reaches far and wide to the greater community. Many are under the inaccurate impression that B'nai Brith exclusively supports those of the Jewish faith. The reality, however, is that B'nai Brith is an advocate for truth, justice, equality, and goodwill toward all humankind. B'nai Brith, in fact, embodies what might be my favorite concept in Jewish charitable theory. This concept is known as tikkun olam. Translated literally, tikkun olam means repair the world. This concept embraces various forms of community-based and charitable actions undertaken to repair and improve the world. The concept of tikkun olam is particularly relevant in times like these, when there are those who are unnecessarily suffering in the world as a result of a few who wish to cause harm, or in defiance of those around the world who are trying to erase people's history, culture, and traditions. The work B'nai Brith does to heal the world keeps us ever vigilant when we are faced with so much hate around us. The fact that B'nai Brith has Canada's only anti-hate hotline available 24/7 to anyone who experiences racism, anti-Semitism, or discrimination is a prime example. By bolstering the community with services like financial support and education, B'nai Brith is literally providing the resources we need to heal. And it is an unfortunate truth that we live in a world today that is in need of repair and healing. Take Russia's illegal and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine and its butchering of thousands of innocent civilians. It is just the latest example of one of the world's autocracies attacking our democratic way of life. Fortunately, Ukraine's courageous and determined defense of its nation is being supported by the world's democracies, led by the United States and Canada. As you know, our two countries have stood shoulder to shoulder in support of the people of Ukraine. Together, our governments are providing billions of dollars in humanitarian support, and our countries have opened our doors to Ukrainian refugees fleeing violence. Just last week, the United States announced an additional $600 million in military assistance to Ukraine, bringing total military assistance since the Biden-Harris administration took office to almost 16 billion US dollars. We have also provided over 1.45 billion US dollars in humanitarian aid for the people of Ukraine and welcomed over 100,000 Ukrainians displaced by the conflict to the United States. Similarly, Canada has committed 626 million Canadian dollars in military aid to Ukraine and 320 million Canadian dollars in humanitarian assistance. And most notably, Canada has approved temporary residence status for over 238,000 Ukrainians fleeing the war. All Canadians and Americans should be proud of these efforts and our work to repair the world one life at a time. Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine has also underscored the importance of energy as a national and, quite frankly, a global security issue. The United States and Canada are committed to supporting energy security, not just for ourselves, but also for democracies around the world, especially our European friends and allies who are most affected by Russia's weaponization of energy. That is, by Russia threatening to cut off oil and gas shipments to democratic countries who try to get in the way of Russia's illegal aggression. The good news is that our two countries are perfectly positioned to join together to help repair the world's reliance on fossil fuels from autocracies like Russia. Hydropower from Quebec, Manitoba, and the Columbia River Basin, oil and gas from Alberta, and offshore oil from Newfoundland and Labrador are important elements of our ability to reduce that reliance. Energy security and climate security go hand in hand. Our longer-term strategy to enhance energy security is our transition to a clean energy future. This will help heal the planet as it reduces reliance on fossil fuels from autocratic countries. The continuing history of the U.S.-Canadian partnership on clean energy will serve us all well in this regard. For decades, the United States and Canada have bought and sold hydroelectricity across our border, from Quebec and Manitoba to Washington State and Oregon in the Columbia River Basin. We have worked together to produce emission-free electricity. The future of clean energy innovation owes a great deal to the work you're doing here in Alberta and in British Columbia, Quebec, Ontario, and elsewhere to advance the use of clean hydrogen as fuel and the use of critical minerals as part of the zero-emission and electrical vehicle revolution. All this will help create a future with a clean, diverse supply of energy, independent from autocracies around the world. It will help repair the world and quite literally repair the planet. With the United States and Canada sharing the same values of equality, justice, and goodwill toward all, I know that we will continue to enjoy collaborative success in repairing the world as a result of our unique bilateral relationship, and we can be comfortable relying on the values of exceptional organizations like B'nai Brith to continue to lead the way. I leave you with these fitting words from Albert Einstein. Only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile. So thank you once again for honoring me tonight and giving me the opportunity to share my gratitude virtually for all that you do and the wonderful work that I know you will continue to do moving forward. Have a great evening.
How about that? That was well done. That is the first honoree. Let me introduce our second. She was born in England. What? Hi, folks. Hi. There we go. Born in England, raised in Manitoba, has been living in Calgary and made Calgary home for 25 years this summer. She's a city councillor, was a mother. She is a community leader, a business person, a wife, a citizen, a friend, a daughter, community volunteer, problem solver, entrepreneur, expert in how cities work. And on October 25th, 2021, she was sworn in as the Calgary's 37th mayor and the first woman to be elected to this role. Would you please welcome the woman we are honoring here tonight, Mayor Jyoti Gondek. Come on up here. Oh, hello. Welcome. Come have a seat. Thank you so much. First of all, you actually have worked with the ambassador. Tell us a bit about your relationship with him.
Oh my goodness, I wish he could have been here. That video was lovely, but there's nothing like speaking with him in person. He is an individual that cares so much. My first time meeting him, obviously I was nervous. I'm meeting an ambassador from the U.S., and he just set us all at ease, and he came in, and his first point was, "So I've been looking at your budget." Okay. And he goes, "I don't know if you know this, but I used to be chief of staff to the former mayor of Philadelphia, so I'm very interested in municipal budgets, and let me tell you what I think of yours." I thought, oh my goodness, this man's a nerd. He's a nerd like me. This could be good. And we had a great conversation, but I would say the most important thing was his honest commitment to equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. He said this line about building back better, it's a great line, but it won't work unless people feel like they're part of that solution, and I'm here to help. I've had 3 meetings with him since. He met with a group of women entrepreneurs in Calgary, asked them what their greatest challenges were, and addressed their questions not only in that meeting, but connected them with people who could help them the very next day. This is a gentleman that is amazing, and we are lucky to have him at this point in time.
Isn't that great? Tell me a bit about, on a night like tonight, where you think faith plays in the world of public service and public work.
That's a great question. There's a lot of people that will say that faith has no role to play in business, and faith has no role to play in politics, and we should abandon faith-based organizations and faith-based ideologies. I would argue that faith is a deeply personal thing, and everyone believes in something. Whether you believe in yourself or other people or God or Allah or whatever you choose to call this thing that you believe in, it's important because it grounds you. For myself, I've been raised sick. I know my prayers. I know the history of my faith, and it grounds me. I do my prayers every day, and I reflect on the fact that my parents, who left India, went to England, and then came to Canada, were grounded in their faith, and it kept them stable and solid over the years, and it keeps me stable and solid in the same way. I think you can be someone that believes in a higher purpose and a higher being and still be someone that's sharp in finance, sharp in strategy, and someone that cares about everyone that you serve.
We're going to have an opportunity to get a couple of questions from the audience in a bit, so if you have a question, think of it. But let's just go back a bit. We're going to get to civic politics. Talk about your mom and your dad. What were they like? What did you learn from them?
Well, my mom still lives with me, and her message to me every day is twofold. Don't argue with anyone today, which sometimes doesn't work, and put on some lipstick. This is her advice to me every single day. And those of you who have moms in your life right now, you know what that's like. You might not do.
I put on lipstick whenever
Every
I can,
single
but just not tonight. Yes.
So my mom and dad were both very important in my formative years. They remain important to me today. I lost my dad very unexpectedly in 2003, and I would say that losing him at that time without knowing that he would be gone is probably what shaped the course of my future. At the time, I had worked as a policy analyst in government. I had worked with Greyhound Canada, with the credit union system. I had just started my own business, and then he was gone. And I had been working with him on introducing Punjabi as a second language option in the Calgary Board of Education system, and speaking with Calgary Board of Education about how the concept of religion should be taught in schools. And so we had these half-finished documents, and I thought maybe I should just go and talk to the uncles that he was working with and see if they needed a hand to finish this stuff. And that's when they embraced me and they said, for sure, your dad did great stuff. If you would like to finish what he started, we'd love to have you. And I realized that all the years he had said to me, you need to be more political. He didn't mean partisan. He meant be political in driving change. Practice some politics and get involved and push back at the things that you think are wrong and make some good things happen. And so losing him was awful, but it also reminded me of everything that he had stood for his entire life. And I have to say one more thing about this. When you lose somebody, you remember them dearly and you reflect all the time, but you kind of forget the person that's still left, right? So my mom, there are days that I get into arguments with her. There are days that I absolutely adore her. And one day when she's gone, I will reflect back on this. She's always been good to me. She always made me a good person. And you should be thankful for every moment you have with your parents.
How about that? I've heard you speak about this, but how has living with an aging parent affected your decisions around what makes a good city?
Wow, when you live with someone who's aging, so my mom's 83, she'll be turning 84 soon. She was 65, just 64, 65 when Dad passed, and she rapidly aged once he was gone. And I've watched all the changes set in. So my husband Todd and I sometimes talk about what's harder, watching my mom age every day or watching his parents age when we see them every 6 months. And, when we see them every 6 months, we go, oh, wow, they're walking a little more slowly or they can't do this. And with my mom, it's like this very slow change that we're observing. I can tell you that I never knew that people's gait changes, that you're a little bit less certain in your footing when you're walking. So if she's on a sidewalk with no gravel, she's fine, but if she's on uncertain ground, she's not okay, and it scares her. So she's scared to go out and walk. She is scared to try new things. She's incredibly trepidatious about speaking to somebody now because she's worried that her English won't be good enough or that she'll forget the right words for things. And it hurts me. It
breaks your heart.
It breaks your heart, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't see someone age in this way, you don't realize that that's what they're going through. But the thing that's done for me is when we're making decisions at council and we have a senior coming and presenting to us who's very slow or tripping over words, I make sure that we're more patient in listening to them. I make sure that we're encouraging them to, take their time. And mayors before me have done this. This is, not something that I've just started. Mayors before me have been incredibly kind to the seniors that come and present to us. I've also made sure that we're smarter about how we're laying out the city, where transit is accessible, because people as they age are less comfortable driving. So there's all kinds of things that living with my mom has taught me, and I would encourage anybody that doesn't have a parent or a senior in their life, spend some time with somebody who's aging, listen to them. And they'll tell you what their challenges are, and that's what will drive us to be better.
When you're at your office, and I didn't get to tell you this, but if you look up in your office, in City Hall, there's plaster work, beautiful plaster work. And when they repaired City Hall in Calgary, they needed somebody who could repair old plaster. Egg and dart is what it's called. You see a round thing and an arrow and a round thing and an arrow, birth and death. I know that because the only person they could find in all of Alberta when they were repairing City Hall and they needed a craftsman, they needed a plasterer who knew how to do that, was my dad. So they brought my dad down from Edmonton to do that. And now my dad, when I was a kid, I would help him. They had 10 kids, my mom and dad did. So they had Ken, then they had me, Dave, and then they had Phil, and then they had Gord, and then they had Grant, and then they had Rob, all 6 boys born in Ottawa. Then they moved to Edmonton, and then they had Julie and Teresa and Anne and Joan, the 4 girls. Yes, there's something in the water. But when I think of my dad, I think of him climbing scaffolds and carrying plaster and big wheelbarrows and all that. He's 88 now, and he's scared. He would be nervous to walk off this. And it's so crazy to think that all of us, remember when we were all young and good looking? Some of us still are, but that feeling, and
you definitely are.
But that's the thing. You learn that all of us need to find a place where when we age, it still fits us. A couple of questions for you now. How has it been? I know when you got into politics, you said, I wanted to be at the table making the decisions instead of watching others make the decisions. How has it been to make those decisions, and what decisions have you been happy to make?
Well, it was interesting for me when I got elected in 2017, and I was ever so grateful for the residents of Ward 3 at that time for believing in me, and I hope I delivered on the things that I promised I would, and I hope they have benefited from my service for 4 years in that ward. It was strange coming into political office. It's a weird place to be. Councillor John Carlo Cross sitting right here, he was one of the people that helped me learn all the things you have to do, like, how to turn on your mic and when to speak and when not to. So there's this sort of, let me call it performative stuff that goes on in council chambers. But I would say the hardest thing is accepting that you don't know something and having the strength to ask out loud, what does that mean? Or what exactly is this policy that you're talking about? Because when the cameras are on you and you are supposed to know all of the things, and you can't possibly because there's too much stuff, you need to find it within yourself to say, look, I don't know what you mean, and I need to make an informed decision because I'm representing Calgarians. Break this down for me. And I found that the more we do that as members of council, the better it is for the public, because nobody understands all the complications of procedure, bylaw, and policy. So I think we've gotten stronger and better as a council by having some very public debates and discussions about things that are otherwise very confusing.
I did some digging because that's what I do, and I decided to ask an old boss of yours what you were like. So I went to the dean of the Haskayne School of Business, and I said, tell me a bit about when she worked with you. She said, and he said, I'm a huge fan of Jyoti. She is brave, wise, thoughtful, and incredibly hardworking. She was the inaugural director of the Westman Center for Real Estate Studies. She set up the program, recruited, instructed, worked with donors, raised money, recruited students. So you've got some big fans out there. What did your business career and your business life help you with going into civic politics?
Well, my first career was in government in Manitoba, and I was a policy analyst looking at women's shelters, and they trusted me to crunch the numbers to say, this is the length of stay that's acceptable and on average. And what it did for me is show me that if you ever only focus on numbers, you're not going to get it right. So what's the answer to the question of how long should a woman be able to stay in shelter if she's facing violence at home? And the answer that the numbers generate is 7.25 days. That's nonsense. The answer should be as long as she needs to be safe and to be cared for until she can find a safe environment to return to. And I was 25 years old, like not that, pretty young, not understanding the world, and I realized that it could be a cruel place if you didn't fight the system. So, then when I went on to work in a corporate environment, I worked in the credit union system, I worked for Greyhound Canada, I ran my own consulting company, and I would challenge business leaders to do better and think better for the people that they served. So by the time I got to Haskayne and the Westman Center for Real Estate Studies, I had been challenging people, sometimes losing the arguments, sometimes winning them, sometimes getting beaten down and feeling like I couldn't change the world, and other times accomplishing great things with the people I was working with, so I could hold my own by the time I got there. And so it was a pleasure to work with students and explain to them, hold your convictions close to you, and always challenge the system, because there are others that will challenge it with you, but if you don't stand up and say this is wrong, there may be somebody behind you that's more terrified than you. So let's change the world, let's go, let's do this. I'm here with you. There are many business leaders in this city that are here with you. We graduated some amazing folks, and I think some of them may be here tonight. There's somebody waving back there. I hope that means you graduated from the program. Yeah, thank you. And even if you're faking it, thank you. But it means a lot. Like if you have had some knocks in your life and you can explain to other people that it's okay, it'll get better, they will latch on to that and they'll be stronger because of it.
A few people came up to me when they knew that we were chatting, and they're like, are you going to ask about the arena? What the hell's going on at the arena? I want to know about the arena. People want to know about the arena. What can we say?
Okay, so this is the arena that used to be called the Event Center that's now called the Arena/Event Center again. Let me explain something that I think is incredibly important. When council made a decision about 1.5 years ago to change the structure of the deal, I was incredibly vocal about the fact that one party taking on all the risk for additional cost would be a dangerous thing. Very vocal about that. It passed. I was still concerned about that. In November of last year, the item came to Calgary Planning Commission, and it's a development permit. So it was basically saying, do you agree with the design of this place? Do you think all the needs have been met? And I remember at that time spending 6 hours on that one item in Edmonton, then on the road coming home from Edmonton, and then for 2 hours in my room, because it was COVID times, on Teams, saying, all of the development permit conditions have been met. If you look at what's being offered, everything has been met. And the development permit succeeded. And I was a proponent of that. What happened in December was that the costs simply were something that could not be borne. And so I don't fault Calgary Sport and Entertainment Corporation. This is something that they could no longer do. We all know that that's the narrative right now. Costs have gone up so much because of supply and logistics demands and the fact that materials are not available the way they used to be. That deal was gone, but I can also tell you that in January, this present council agreed in a unanimous vote to pursue the idea of an event center, because we know that the success of an arts and culture district and an entertainment district and a city like ours depends on having innovative and future-focused infrastructure like a proper event center. And I'm hopeful that we can carry on with the negotiations at some point. Right now, we're trying to get partners to the table, and it looks pretty good. Once I have something definitive to share with you, I can tell you that the chair of the committee, Councillor Sharp, and myself will be happy to tell you what it looks like, but right now, things are progressing.
It's there, so hopefully that answered the question. I have one because I know, as a guy who used to work in the media, I know how this can flip on you. A couple of years ago, Edmonton said, we are going to take the climate crisis seriously, and we're going to deal with energy in the most forward-thinking way we can. And no one argued, no one got upset, it wasn't a deal. You became mayor, and you made essentially the same sort of declaration in Calgary, and then it got flipped into suddenly something that was totally not the intention. And I want you to be able to set the record straight on what happened and what that means to you.
I think it probably took me more by surprise than anybody else because I have been talking about this for a long time, and I've long said that previous council had cold feet fully committing to the fact that the climate crisis was a real thing. And so when I said during the election that we need to declare a climate emergency because that's the only way we can pursue the capital that's available, no one really cared because I wasn't the mayor. As soon as I became the mayor, this became a thing. And we were existing in a time, and I think we're still in that time, where you're either one thing or another, and you can't be somebody that's trying to progress into something else. The fact that you agree that the climate crisis is real does not mean that you dislike the energy industry. And unfortunately, that's the polarization that we've created. And my goal is to demonstrate to the rest of the world and to investors, especially those with deep pockets who have capital to invest in places like our city, we take this seriously, and the energy transition has been going on for decades. We're not starting an energy transition. We started it a long time ago. We are the city that leads transformation of this sector. When you talk about carbon capture, when you talk about renewables, when you talk about hydrogen, we've been having these conversations for a very long time. If you look at Pathways to Net Zero, which is the oil sands groups coming together to say we can be better, they have been leading in this regard. For our city, as a corporation and as a government, to keep pace with that, that's all we were trying to do. And so it's unfortunate that we put people into one bucket or another, when in fact, we as a city council were simply trying to keep up with what the sector was already doing.
I found that, yeah, and I felt bad as a media guy because I thought, wait a minute, that's a media thing that suddenly danced around the truth a little bit and put you in the hot water that really you didn't need to be in. But be that as it may, I want to talk about my daughter Tess is 9, and her brother John is 11. In a month, she has a birthday, and so there's about 2 months where she is right behind him. And when she was a little girl, she thought she was eventually going to catch up to him because I'm 1 year away and I'll catch up. But I want her to look at you and to look at other women in politics and say, I could do that. I could do that. But when I look at the nature of politics, when I look at what our Chrystia Freeland went through when she was accosted in the elevator by a guy who was just being abusive, I think to myself, what woman, let alone what person in their right mind would want to go into politics, would want to go into a place where they're just going to be harassed, where they're going to be spoken to in a way that's just violent. Why would Tess want that? But I want her to want that. What's your sense of girls, all of us that have daughters, to say, I want them to go into politics?
I would bet there is not a woman or a girl in this room that hasn't faced some sort of a challenge that is rooted in her gender. And that's a problem. And I think the more we talk about it and the more we highlight it, and the men that support the women and girls in their lives come forward and also challenge it and say, we've got to be better, we can't tolerate this, things can improve. But we have to talk about it. And it wasn't easy to come forward and say, in my life, these things have happened. Since I've been elected, these things have happened. Because you're taught to be strong. And you should never show weakness, because weakness is failure. What I showed wasn't weakness, it was vulnerability and truth. And I think we need to do a little bit more of that. But when we do that, when people like I do that, you have to give us some space. You have to give us some room to go back and sit with our thoughts and our emotions. Because I didn't want to unpack how I felt when someone left a costume horse's head on my driveway. So people have said, whatever, get over it. It was a costume horse's head. You're being a baby. I had to sit and unpack what it felt like to have 30 protesters standing on my front lawn with my family watching them. I moved on from all of that, didn't talk about it very much because I couldn't. I had a job to do. You can't be the mayor and sit with your feelings and feel your emotions at the same time. You have to just keep going. And even if you're not the mayor, even if you're a woman in any other role, You can't take the time to unpack how that made you feel. And when I did that post, it was a Sunday afternoon, I'd just taken Smokey for a walk, and I came back and I looked at him, I said, dude, I think it's time to just do this. And I posted it. And it was liberating in some ways, and it was awful in others, and I'm still trying to deal with the emotions that it brought up. So what I would say to you is this: when you expect us to be transparent with you, and we are, please understand how hard it was, and please give us the support that we so desperately need, because if we don't have honest conversations, we will never get better.
I feel like that's what we need to do. Absolutely. I wanted to, is there anyone with a burning question that they really want to get to that they want? I don't want to, I could sit here and talk with you all day, Mayor, but I also want to see if there's any, does anyone have a question? Just wave your hands around if you do, and if you don't, I will keep going, and that's fine.
Well, you asked about the arena, so I think we killed that.
I know, right? That was going to be a big chunk of it. But I do think it's easy to misunderstand in any of those situations which we have. So can you just talk a bit about, do we have one? Oh, we have a question right here. Here, use my mic. Yeah.
Today's burning Twitter debate. If you eat Kraft dinner, do you eat it with a fork or a spoon?
Spoon.
What?
Yes.
No.
No, you never pick at Kraft dinner. You scoop up the delicious goodness and you just shove it in your mouth. Like,
do you also
eats
put
Kraft dinner
ketchup
with a
on
fork?
it?
We might be breaking up right now.
We might be breaking up right now. I'm sorry.
Did that ever get contentious, right? Didn't you put the Kraft dinner on the little tines of the fork?
Well, yeah, that's just to play around with it. But like when you're actually seriously eating it as a grown-up, right, you use a spoon, a really big spoon.
I got through university with Kraft dinner and Campbell's soup mixed. Any other questions for our mayor? What's your advice to all of us? What are you excited about when you look forward in our city and you say, look, this is where we can go, this is what we can be? What is your message for us here?
Well, I'm going to give you two messages. The first one has to do with like the nuts and bolts of the economic realities of our city. We are doing quite well in terms of attracting people from industries that we typically didn't land here. So we're doing well with tech, we're doing well with gaming. We are actually doing phenomenally well with women in clean tech. Like 22% of clean tech startups are female-led enterprises, and that's unheard of in any other sector. So we're doing a good job in some regards. But I would say my challenge to a lot of leaders in this room and to a lot of your friends, those folks who have capital to spend, who have been comfortable taking risks on the energy sector, they're not taking those risks on the transformation of the energy sector. We've got a lot of people who have great ideas around clean tech, who are dying for capital investments from our city, and I know we have the money here, but they have to go outside of here, and they sometimes have to move away, and I don't want to lose that talent. I still want to be the energy capital, and I still want us to be a leader in the transformation of the energy economy, but we're going to need everybody to step up and understand what we need to do. And my second thought for everyone would be, have some tough conversations. Like we're going into a Thanksgiving now where we can actually be with our families. Take the time to express what you're really thinking. Don't just sit back and listen to what your friends and relatives have to say that you disagree with, because that's what creates the polarization in the world. Don't feel that you have to be bucketed into one side or another. Have the tough conversations, open up some dialogue, and let's be real about what it is that we need to do to be a stronger city.
I have to say, and all the people I talked about you, they said the amazing thing about this mayor is she cares deeply what people think, and she cares very little about what they think of her. And that's a tremendous skill to have, to say she is going to do the work she is going to do, and that's there. My daughter, I'm going to tell her that I got to hang out with you today, and it was a good thing. And I'm so glad that we got to honor Ambassador Cohen, and we get to honor you. And as soon as everybody claps for you, we get to honor whoever wins the 50-50 draw. So it's going to be a very exciting night. Can we hear it for our mayor, Mayor Gondek? Thank you so much for being here. So good. What a great night. Mayor Gondek, thank you so much. Ambassador, thank you for sending the video. And for the rest of you, have a great night. We'll see you again next year.